You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
When I tell you that this is going to be an amazing show, I'm telling you right now, this is going to be an amazing show. This is going to be a show that you're going to want to share on social media, that you're going to want your friends to listen to, not only for the entertainment value, but also for, the educational value. Tonight's guest, well, before I even get into that, to give you a little background, when people say, hey, this person is following directly in somebody's footsteps, that is the perfect reflection of tonight's show. Our guest tonight, I'm basically following his footsteps. Everything and everywhere that I'm at right now at this point in my wrestling career, tonight's guest was in that same exact spot, making the same exact mistakes, probably with the same exact attitude 5 years ago. But with no further ado, tonight I'm so proud, I'm honored, and I'm extremely grateful to have on a former multi-company, multi-promotional champion. This gentleman was a former Power Pro Wrestling heavyweight champion, former Power Pro Wrestling tag team champion down in Sanford, North Carolina, former NWA Continental champion. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. At one point, tonight's guest actually held Connie as well. Former NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champion. Man, this guy's held so many different titles in so many different promotions. He's a former booker. He's a former podcaster. He is a mentor. And for most, to wrap all it up, he's a brute. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's guest is the brute himself, Mark James. Did I do good enough for the introduction, Mark? Did I miss something out? Did I miss something?
No, I feel like we're done now. Like I can't top that. We just call it right here, and this will be the end of the podcast. That'll be it, right?
Oh, no. I definitely feel like there's some things that we can talk about, man. Like I said in the introduction, when where I'm at right now in my career, 10 years in, it's definitely me and you always laugh and joke about it, that all the mistakes that I've made, all the moves that I've made, for better or for worse, is the same exact things that you have done. Am I correct? Let's go ahead and get that out the way.
Yeah, pretty much. And I've been hoping over the last couple of years that you've noticed that I've done nothing since then in my career. So hopefully you don't completely follow that path. But yeah, man,
get out of here.
It's the crazy thing, including like you were just saying with Connie. The NWA Continental title and the NWA Mid-Atlantic tag title. Actually, I lost them both to you, as a matter of fact.
I know.
So, it's just like one thing right after another, man. You're just constantly right behind you, kicking me out of the way. So it's good. And, I appreciate that, though, and I appreciate seeing the next level of the wrestling industry. And guys like you and guys like Bo Crock and Joe and the many that I've worked with over the years, it's really awesome to see you guys doing well, and I just appreciate it, and I'm glad I'm still able to share the ring with you.
Well, let me say, let's go ahead and toot your own horn some, man, because you're a vet. A lot of guys, myself and the guys that you mentioned, all look up to you, man, and you're still kicking ass in the ring. Listen, in my opinion, you're a throwback to when people say they like old school 60s, 70s, 80s wrestling, when guys didn't have to be body guys and they didn't have all the muscles or whatever. They just looked like big, tough motherfuckers that'll beat your ass if you step to them wrong in a bar. That's you. And I've seen on several shows where a promoter would have a problem with one of the boys, and they're like, "Hey, Mark, can you handle this for me?" How does that make you feel for you to be at that point now?
It's a little awkward, honestly. But in the same respect, it makes me feel good that I'm highly respected enough that people trust me. And typically it doesn't have to get out of hand if I go and talk to somebody else, because they respect me enough to just listen and kind of do what I'm asking. But no, it's a really good feeling. Jimmy Parker, my tag partner, fellow brute, he calls me Oli all the time. So, and a lot of people, I'll get that reference a lot on one of the Andersons or, a lot of Oli, mostly because I hate most everyone and I'm really, grumpy all the time. But it's, to be compared to guys like that, is more than I can ever imagine in my career. And those guys are the ones that we watched growing up and the ones that people study on a day-to-day basis. And that's always what I've strived for. So, being able to do that, a little bit of new school in there with some of my agility and things like that for a guy that's my size. But I think it works, and it's a great throwback and callback for a lot of parents and adults out there that really want to see that again.
Now, see, I wasn't going to mention it, but since you talk about your agility, what's your background? Let's go ahead and talk about your background before wrestling. What were you doing before wrestling, your athletic-wise?
Well, I grew up playing soccer. Grew up in New Jersey and played soccer from the time I was 3. My uncle was one of the Italian national team members years and years ago. His name was Ignacio Valentino. And one of his best friends played for Argentina. So these guys are the ones that kind of helped me through that. So it's helped me in a lot of my speed, footwork, agility, things like that as I was growing up. But when I got to North Carolina, soccer wasn't very prevalent here. And I didn't see the point in playing it. It was so far behind where we were up in New Jersey. And nothing against North Carolina, it just was. That, and I was a lot bigger than most soccer players. So the football coach kind of grabbed me and told me I needed to play football, which worked out really well. So I played football during the fall season. I actually was a male cheerleader some during the winter. I didn't wrestle, surprisingly. I didn't wrestle. I didn't play basketball because I didn't tell people too much. But I was a male cheerleader. I did a lot of base stuff, and I learned how to do a lot of tumbling routines from some of the cheerleaders up in state. And I think that's been able to, even at 300 pounds or the biggest I've ever gotten at 330, I was still able to do, moonsaults and running shooting star presses and drop kicks and things like that without a problem, because I understand core and core balance and things like that. So, those are the main things as far as athletics go. Spent some time in the Marine Corps, fought a little bit, did this and that, but I've always done something kind of athletic throughout my life. Rugby, track, you name it, I've done it.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold it against you that you was a Marine, I make no bones about the fact that I'm a former Army, I'm an Army veteran, so I won't hold it against you that you decided to go into the Marine Corps.
Well, the good thing about it is you're former Army, I'm still a Marine, so it'll...
Oh, come on now. Now, I want to talk about the biggest thing, man. One of the main things I want to talk to you about, besides, what you learn as far as being a podcaster and being a booker, is that you have such a huge presence on social media, man. Like, every time I turn around, you're right there on social media, whether you're promoting shows that you're on, whether you're promoting, the shoot job and stuff, everything that's going on as far as working out at the gym, and just current events in wrestling. Why be so outspoken? Do you feel that it's your duty as a vet to be outspoken? Whenever, trouble arises, whenever some people are talking about something that happened on SmackDown or Raw, or, a couple of weeks ago they had the whole Da fiasco. Do you feel that it's your duty as a vet to put your 2 cents in and try to give some perspective to not only the 20 to 25-year-old vets, 20 to 25-year vets, and, the greenhorns and the rookies in the business?
Well, so the social media thing started probably 8 years ago for me, and it was right when Twitter was first taking off really big. Facebook was already out there and everything else, so I kind of just jumped into it. A lot of guys laughed at me for how much I actually used it. I was always on Twitter. I was always trying to get more followers, always trying to sell myself and merchandise and market and all that stuff so I can get more bookings and get seen more places and things like that. And then they started seeing my follower count go up. And now I'm, I think, right around 2,500 followers on Twitter. I'm at 5,000 friends on Facebook, most of which I don't like and can't talk to. But either way. But as far as putting my 2 cents in, I see so many young guys that have really, really wrong perspectives when it comes down to professional wrestling. And they'll talk about things that they have no idea what they're talking about. They don't understand the psychology behind it yet. They're just downing it just to down it to sound cool, and it bugs me. So I have to say something because I'm an opinionated motherfucker such as yourself. So I feel like I need to step in and be that guy that's just straight up and is just honest and just tells people how it is. And if they like it, great. And if they don't like it, well, fuck them. That's just the way wrestling is. Everybody's got an opinion, and most of them are wrong. None of us are doing anything different than anybody else is right now. So I just don't see the point in listening and watching people just constantly say the wrong things and make the wrong decisions. And I hope that if I say something, it can either influence a promoter, it can influence a young wrestler, It can influence a booker, anyone, to do, maybe something better in their job.
Well, and speaking of, because I know, especially a couple of years ago, I think I've gotten a whole lot better with what I post on social media. But I can admit, there was a good couple of years span where I would just get mad and I would rant and rave on Facebook, and several times. Ladies and gentlemen, I would tell you right now, I would post something so controversial, so idiotic, and within 2 to 3 minutes, I would get a message from you, and all the message would say is, delete that. Take that off.
Yeah.
Take that down.
Yeah.
And eventually,
I gave a shit, dude. I mean, that's really all it is. It's because I gave a shit. Like, I cared about you and the direction of your career. No, I wasn't one of your trainers, but I was a guy that I felt like was helping kind of guide you throughout your career. So for me to let you do something that I knew was going to hurt your career, that would be wrong on my part. You know what I'm saying? And I still do it for guys that I've got nothing to do with as far as their training goes, except for, in passing, or I'll critique a match or something like that. But you can't just let the younger generation do something that's stupid and just let them get away with it. And not that I learned from my own mistakes, right? And I did it. And I want to talk about that mistake. I definitely want to bring it up to teach guys how social media can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how you make it. Because after a while, you came to me and you was like, why I tell you to take that stupid shit off whenever you post something stupid? Here's why I tell you. And then you told me this story. For the benefit of our listeners and fans, and for the young guys in this business who are listening to this show, please give the example that you gave to me of why it's so important for you to watch what you post on social media. Yeah. Okay, so we were doing the Power Pro Wrestling radio show, which is a weekly podcast that we were doing about Power Pro Wrestling, which was based out of North Carolina. Anyway, so the fans that call in or write in, and they would ask questions, and they would talk about certain things. And at the time, honestly, I just had a death wish. I was going through a divorce, and that's a whole other story, and issues with the custody and kids, and I was just doing really bad things for myself. So I didn't care what I said. I didn't care what I did. I figured that more controversy just meant I would get more notice in other places. Well, one night we were on the show, and someone called in. I don't remember if they called in or they just said a question about the current WWE product and how I understood it and what direction I thought it was trying to go. And I went off on a rant about just everything. At the time, it was terrible. This was 7 years ago, now probably 6-7 years ago. And at the time, it was like Cena was just the guy, and I didn't understand Cena at the time because I was stupid. And anyway, so the whole direction of it was really bad. There was no competition for them, and they were just writing a lot of really just crappy angles, and just nothing that was really working. It wasn't entertaining. That was my issue. It was not entertaining, and I actually brought that up, and I talked about the angles that they were going on, and I can't remember what they are because I didn't head too damn much. But I talked about the angles that were going on and how I thought it was just really boring, and why they're losing so many viewers, and why they can't sell in crowds anymore, and like at that time their teams like a low that they haven't seen in years since before the Attitude Era, and it was just bad. Well, a few days after that, I found out that Teddy Long was talking with John Barnett, who was coming down for it was like a seminar that was out in the mountains where Dad had. I found out that Teddy Long was listening to the podcast for a few different things, and he was trying to help get involved with Power Pro Wrestling, thanks to Johnny Lightning down in Wilmington. Well, that being the case, instead of he was talking to Johnny Ace. Johnny Ace was coming to do a seminar in the mountains, and I was planning to go to that seminar. It was a couple weeks later, and I was excited about it, and I thought it would be pretty good for my career because, why not get in front of the head of talent relations at WWE? And who better to learn from, right? So, anyway, they're looking through different Power Pro stuff, and I'm sure they're looking at a couple matches, but somehow that clip of our radio show came up, and Teddy was pretty embarrassed, and turned out that he didn't end up working with Power Pro because of it. And Johnny was pretty pissed off, And then during the seminar and my match that I had there, literally got up and just left the room right at the beginning of the match. Like, we didn't even get started, right?
Ooh.
So, screwed myself out of an opportunity there. On top of that, the guy that I was working there, we did a tag match. The guy that I was working in the match, who had no business in the ring, this kid was like maybe 3 months into the business. He was terrible. Couldn't remember shit. I had to drag him through everything that it was his spots in the match. I had to drag him through it and then put him over at the end of it. He got booked to go to Raw the next night. Meanwhile, Johnny didn't even talk to me after the match. He gave everybody else critiques, didn't even talk to me. Right?
Oh, man.
Yeah. So you guys think that the social media shit doesn't get back to other people? You think that what you do online doesn't get back to other people? You're wrong. You're completely wrong. So everything you do, if it's on YouTube, if it's on any kind of social media, if it's on Skype, they're probably going to find out about it. So be smart, kids. Please be smart and talk about things that make sense. Don't run down a product if you plan on working there at some point. And even if you don't run down a product because you never know if they're going to be fucking interested in you. Like, why screw yourself out of an opportunity? But that was my story. That was the thing.
Yeah, and ever since you told me that story, I've made a conscious effort to always make sure that, hey, if somebody at WWE or New Japan or ROH was to go on my Facebook and this was the first thing that they saw on my social media, would they talk to me afterwards? And if in my mind, if I'm like, no, they probably wouldn't talk to me, I kind of sound like a jackass, I immediately erase it. I would admit there are times where I just blow off whatever, and I'll make, what people like to call the passive-aggressive posts. But I made a conscious decision because of the story that you gave me and you told me to never just run down a show. Even if I don't like it, I'll disagree, but I won't run the company or the product down. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. No, that's the smartest way to do it.
Yeah.
And you've gotten a million times better at it, by the way.
Oh, thank you. So, you're doing a podcast. First of all, what was the biggest thing you learned from doing podcasts?
It helped me be able to communicate a little bit better, and it helped me learn the difference in my characters. So I was able to be on a podcast and interview people and be a little more of myself instead of being the heel, the bad guy Mark James, or the really good guy Mark James, or something like that. So plus being able to hear from other people and their experiences and what they've done and what worked and what didn't work, and where they are in their career really made an impact on me to be able to get better in my career. So it was really cool. I've gotten to interview guys like Nick Bockwinkel before he passed on, Diamond Dallas Page, tons of local talent, a lot of really good stuff all over the country. And, I'm thankful that I was able to do it for the time that I did it. I tried to jump back into it a little bit a couple of years ago, and it's just not for me anymore. Every once in a while I'll do an interview, but I'm more focused on some other stuff now.
And I was going to ask you, because I used to listen to the Pop-Up Show. I thought she was totally entertaining. Of course, I was green at the time, and my influences as far as like how to be a heel lean more towards the CM Punk and IWA Mid-South than Ric Flair or something like that. So I thought that's what you had to do to be a heel. So I completely enjoyed it. But I always wondered why you never got back into being a podcaster. So many people know you. You're so opinionated. You're You're so knowledgeable of not only indie wrestling but wrestling in general. Like, why stop?
Because it got to the point that I was doing a podcast almost every night. And it was just too much. You know what I mean? I was oversaturating myself. Oh, 1 second, sorry. I was oversaturating myself in the market, and I was doing just way too many podcasts. I had the Power Pro one, and I was doing Beyond Ringside with Eddie down in Georgia, not Georgia, in Alabama, and I was on there twice a week. And then I had one with Shoot Finish Radio, and I was doing a weekly YouTube thing, and it was just too much, man. So it's almost impossible to keep up with that. That and my wrestling career and everything else, eventually I had to smarten up and use my time a little more wisely and get out of it because I was just oversaturating myself.
Now, we talk about your wrestling career and stuff, man, because now and don't take this the wrong way. It's like there's a resurgence of Mark James and stuff. You kind of you rebranded yourself as a Brute. How did that come about? Where did the whole Brute gimmick come about? Where did it come from, man?
Jimmy Parker and I were, we were looking at the whole tag team thing. I did the Master Malice gimmick for a long time. I did Sticks for a while before that. I hated it. And then the one stint where I think I lost my memory and I did something called the Doodly Boys for a little while, and it was a terrible idea. But anyway, so Jimmy and I were talking about 3 years ago, and his dad saw us both at a show in Thomasville, and Jimmy was on the other side of the room. He's wearing like his blue trunks that he had. I was putting on my blue biker shorts that I had, and his dad was like looking back and forth from the middle of the room going, that'd be a hell of a tag team. And when Jimmy and I started talking, we both like thought about wrestling the same way. We both kind of were old school. Both really wanted to do something a little bit different. At the time, tag team wrestling wasn't as prevalent as it is now. There's a ton of tag teams out there now. Back then, it was like the Dolphins and Mid-Atlantic Outlaws, and that's pretty much it. There wasn't a ton of tag teams around the area. So we jumped on it, and we did it, and it took us a while. We kind of went back and forth about the whole name of the tag team and what we wanted to call ourselves. And then, honestly, I was sitting in bed one night, and I'm watching The Princess Bride with my kid. And the Andre the Giant in that, and the line comes up, someone call the Brute Squad. He's like, you are the Brute Squad. I was like, oh, that's a freaking great name. I was like, it's perfect for it. And then we didn't want to go about it. Yeah, dude, that's exactly how it came up. And we didn't want to go by the Brute Squad because there was a couple of jabronis down in South Carolina that are still doing that. So we just cut it down, and after a couple of days, like I threw it at Jimmy. He's like, I don't know, we'll think about it. A couple of days later, he comes back. He's like, how about just the Brutes? And I was like, perfect, I love it. So that's what we went with, man. And it really fits. It fits my style. It fits my demeanor. It fits my work. Fits my thought process in the ring. Jimmy's a little more the technical guy. I just beat people up, and it works really well. So if there ever would be a Brute in wrestling, I think this is me, and I think it fits.
Yeah. Talk about Brutes. Yeah, talk about that fits your in-ring style. The first time we ever were ever in the ring together, I think I was like a year and a half in at Shockwave Wrestling in Havelock. At that time, I was in Morehead City, North Carolina. It was me and my old tag team partner, ATL, Alton Lee, and we were facing you, and I can't remember who your tag team partner was at the time. But we were the heels, and it might have been Bobby Savage. But I was choking him on the ropes, and I didn't, I was green, and I didn't know anything about ring positioning. And I'm choking him on the ropes. I'm standing on the outside of the floor, and I'm choking him over the second rope. And I hear something running. I hear movement to the left. And before I could think or register what was going on, I looked to the left, and there was your, size 13, 14 boot?
Yeah.
Getting ready to kick me in the face. Ladies and gentlemen, the first concussion, I've had several concussions in professional wrestling because a lot of times when I was younger, I used to do a lot of stupid things, take unprotected chair shots, et cetera, et cetera. The first concussion I ever got in professional wrestling was from a boot to the face by Mark James. And I will never forget, I was out for 30 seconds, just hand on the apron, just out cold. And after the match, all you said was, "You sure realize where you were, kid."
Yep. You didn't make that mistake again, did you? Ever?
No, I never made that mistake again. No, I never made that mistake
I'm kind
again.
of a dick. And yeah, I get that. I get that a lot. I'm a dick. I'm kind of an asshole. I do things like that, but people remember them. And, I don't, obviously I'm not out here to hurt anyone or kill anyone or anything like that. But it's wrestling. It's not a fucking ballet. We're in there fighting, and that's what it's supposed to look like. And if it doesn't look like a bar fight, what the fuck are you doing? Why? Hey, sorry, you said motherfucker one time, and now it's just open. I can't help it.
Well, yeah, this is not a family friendly show. I'm going to let you know right now. We had Rip Rogers on an earlier incantation of this show And he had the record, followed very closely by White Mike about 3-4 weeks ago, who gave Rip Rogers a run for his money when it came to dropping the F-bomb. So unless you think you can top those two guys, be my guest.
No, I'll try not to. But yeah, man, I mean, if it doesn't look real, why are you doing it? And I'm not talking shit about cruiserweights and their acrobatics and all that stuff. I'm not talking about that, because there's definitely a place for that in the business. That's fine. But for a guy like me, who looks like he should be able to beat somebody's ass, like, that's what I'm going to do in the ring. I'm going to hit. It's going to look like I'm hitting hard. It's probably going to feel like I'm hitting hard. I'm a big, tough son of a bitch, and that's what's going to happen. Like, you're going to get beat up in a match. And I'm sorry if that bothers you, but I know how to do it all safe. It's never something that's going to kill anyone or hurt anyone or put anyone out of the business or anything stupid. But there is an intensity that comes along with wrestling a guy like me, that just like when you wrestled the Andersons back in the day, you're going to feel it the next day. It's just how it is, people that wrestle you, they feel the same thing, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, I was just, this earlier on this week's show that we recorded yesterday, I was talking about the match I had this past weekend with a kid. It was like, he had less than 10 matches, and of course, the promoter wanted him to go over. It was his hometown, and all promoters are not like this, man. It makes you, they make you lose your hometown. It was the kid's first time wrestling his hometown. They wanted him to go over and stuff. So I basically told the kid, I was like, look, you're going over, but you're going to throw the ass whooping for about 6 to 7 fucking minutes. And then, I'll slip on a banana peel and you can go over. So, yeah, I totally agree with the whole, like, look, it's going to hurt. You'll be able to get, you'll get up for work tomorrow morning. You're going to be banged up. You're going to be sore. But this is going to hurt,
Yeah. And every once in a while, I busted my lip at Sunday in the match that I had on June 11th at the RWA show. Busted my lip. I'm walking around looking like I friggin', got in a fight with somebody. And I did. That's what happens sometimes. It's part of the business, and you got to be able to take and go with it. And it's not one of those things that you need to like take a picture of it and say, oh, they said wrestling's fake. Shut the fuck up with that. You know what I mean? It's the dumbest thing ever. But it is a contact sport.
What do you say to people when they use the F word? When people say wrestling's fake? Because I usually tell people, okay, the outcome is predetermined. Wrestling's fake. Okay, so is movies, but you enjoy that. You know what I'm saying? So is Breaking Bad, but people never complain about Breaking Bad being fake. What is your response when people say, oh, well, that stuff is fake?
I tell them they're welcome to get in the ring with me. That usually shuts them up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they can step in and they can take the things that we do and they can learn how to bump like we did, and they can learn how to take some of these falls that we have and fall off the top rope and let me slam them around. And I dare anyone after one session of training to go home and say that wrestling's fake again.
Well, okay, so when somebody's coming in to train to be a wrestler, I know every training school has a different way of doing things, a different type of tryout. I've seen some tryouts where they just have the guys bump and try to run the ropes to see if they're coachable. And you have some guys who are more old school and they basically beat the piss out of somebody and run them to death and make them throw up to see if they'll be able to handle the physical rigors of training. When you are introducing somebody to the business, or if you do, so when it comes to your thought process, when it comes to introducing somebody to the business, do you lean more towards, are you coachable, or, hey, look, kid, this is going to be tough. We're going to beat your ass to see if you can handle this?
A little of both, really, and not because I want to run to death or anything like that, but I just make them do bumps the whole time. They're just going to do bumps, and it's going to be a stiff-ass ring, and they're just probably going to do 300 to 500 bumps that day. And if they can get up and come back the next week, then I know they're tough. And if they do the bumps and they're doing it the way I'm asking them to, then I know they're coachable. And if that's really all it takes. There shouldn't be any more than that. There's no reason to make somebody throw up. There's no reason to run somebody through a wall or something like that. But a bump is the equivalent of a 35-mile-an-hour car accident on your body. If you can take that 300 times in a day and still get up and say, yeah, I want to keep doing this, yeah, you're good with me. You know what I mean? Let's keep going. Let's do this the right way. And that's it. My first bump that I took, I did completely wrong. I cracked a bone in the back of my neck playing football. I literally have a broken vertebrae in the back of my neck from playing football. And when I took my first bump, I landed too high, and I landed right on that vertebrae. And it gave me a stinger, and my whole, like, half my body went numb. And Vinny Bain, who was my initial trainer, him and Bax, were there, and they asked me, they're like, hey, you sure you want to do this? You know, is this going to be for you? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, if that's as bad as it's ever going to get, cool, let's go for it. You know, and they kept training me, and they worked with me, and I was stupid, and I left too early because I thought I knew everything. And I apologize to them to this day for that. They did a great job breaking me in the business. However, it's something that I think showed them my tenacity, and it showed them my ability to be coached and to learn and to get better at it, because the next time I took a bump, I did what they said instead of doing what I wanted to do, you know? And I'm not one of those guys that just tells you to fall. I'm going to tell you how to do it. You know, I'm going to explain everything to you. I'm going to show it and demonstrate it, just like you would if you're a personal trainer or if you're a teacher. You're going to demonstrate things. You're going to explain why things are done a certain way and hope that the person does it that way. And if they don't, they're stupid. But they'll learn. And if they want to learn and they want to keep trying, then they'll get back up and they'll do it over again. And if they don't, they'll get the fuck out of the ring and leave the building. And that's it. And I've seen it happen both ways.
Now, let's switch gears, because I mentioned before that you are a student of wrestling and that you follow all types of wrestling. I know you watch WWE because you always commented about what's going on with WWE. Before I even get to anything else, what is your opinion about the women's Money in the Bank ladder match with a man getting the title or getting the briefcase?
I thought it was great. I thought it was great heat, and I think it all made sense. I finally watched it. I was a couple days late on actually watching it, but the way the whole match worked out and everything else, I thought it was a great ending for it. Was it the ending everybody wanted? No, because everybody wants to be all liberated and shit like that. It's wrestling, for God's sakes. It's never going to work out that way. I'm sorry. They're going to do things that are going to piss people off. And this is their way of getting Carmella over. So that's what they did. I didn't have an issue with it, honestly.
Now, did you follow? I'm hoping that do you watch any of New Japan Pro Wrestling?
I do, but very sparingly, honestly. For some reason I can't get into it. Not as much as I want to. Did you happen to watch the Kenny Omega Okada match? Either one of them? I have not, but I will be watching that tomorrow morning. I heard amazing things about the match. I watched the first one that they did, and let's put it this way: I watched the big pay-per-views that they do, but I don't watch the weekly episodes, and that's probably why I can't get into it, because I can't follow everything. But I do like a lot of talent over there.
What did you think about the first one? Did you think that there's such thing that should have been they should have introduced a 6-star because of that match? Basically, because it's saying that it's the great. Giving it 6 stars, Dave Meltzer is basically saying that's the greatest match in the history of professional wrestling, in his opinion. What do you think about it?
I think Dave Meltzer is an idiot, and the fact that there's a star rating on a match is ridiculous. But the match itself was really good, and it told a good story. And there's some heat on it because supposedly they didn't sell enough, and they didn't tell the story fast enough. They took their time into it. It was a long ass match, and for the first 15 minutes of it, they took their time. It was a feel out process. They really told a great story, old school wise, about how they were going to progress and everything. And it also told the story about how Kenny and Okada knew each other in the ring. They expected certain things. There was a lot of transitions. There was a lot of reversals. There was just a build-up to where the match finally got really, really good around the 15, 20-minute mark. I don't know. I don't see how anyone can really go and critique that match and say bad things, because they did so many little things in that match really, really well. And Kenny Omega's been a guy that's been doing little things really well for years. I mean, friggin' years. This guy's been entertaining for, God, I've been watching him for at least probably 10 years now, since he was still in the U.S. doing a lot of stuff. And Kenny's just outstanding. So,
now, okay, so I want to talk to Mark James, the booker. In your opinion, are you still here, Mark?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, my phone sucked. So.
No, it's okay. Mark James, the booker. Because I know our time is running short, but I really want to ask you this question. As a booker, what do you feel is the perfect way to book a show. I know a lot of people say that every match should try to steal the show. Every match should try to be a main event match anywhere else in the country. And then some people say that a show should start off, very basic and then build up to a grand finale. In your opinion, as a former booker and as a mentor for a lot of wrestlers and as a very highly respected vet, especially in the Mid-Atlantic area, what's your opinion about booking a show?
I've always been really big about starting as hot as possible and ending as hot as possible. And that goes for intermission, and it goes to coming back from intermission, and it goes for the end of the show. Now, for all the in-between matches, they need to be really solid matches, but some of them are kind of palate cleansers, especially sometimes like the semi before the main, depending on what happened earlier, if there was a gimmick match or there was something that if I set up something that was going to be just a really, really awesome wrestling match that I know the main event can't compete with, but the story in the main event was good enough that it needs to be there. For instance, if it's a long feud for the championship or something like that, then you got to have a palate cleanser, which is why WWE a lot of times they'll book a women's match in there or like a gimmick type match in there with like mixed tag or something like that, so that you kind of have a palate cleanser in between two really, really good matches. But I think you need a little bit of everything on the show. I love seeing the cruisers on a little bit early because I think they just get the crowd going really fast. And if you can get them up on their feet in the first match, then typically they're going to stay with it as long as you don't have a couple shitty matches right after it. I see too many bookers that will book a really, really bad match. Like, they'll start with their youngest guys, and they'll have, the green guy against a green guy, and you got the blind leading the blind in that match. And that'll be their first, 2 or 3 matches on the show. And the fans don't care after that. Sometimes they don't even stay for the main event. And you got really good wrestlers that are there. They're going to be entertaining. But if you don't build up to them the right way, then nobody's going to give a shit. You got to look at it like a meal, I guess. You build up to that final course. But in the grand scheme of things, I do like starting off really hot on both ends. So it's a really hot start for the curtain jerk. Slow down a little bit in the second match. Just get something that's going to be really entertaining. Doesn't have to be the best wrestling match in the world. Third match, bring it back up a little bit. If there's a fourth match before intermission, which typically I'll do, the fourth match before intermission should be somewhat of a main event quality type match because it's main eventing the lower part of the match of the show, right? Then you come back with something hot again right after the popcorn match, or as we call it, but the match right after intermission. Good semi-main event, awesome main event, and you're done. 7 matches, all you need. Keep it about 2.5 hours, and leave the crowd wanting more. And if you can do that, then you'll have a successful program, you'll have a successful show, and you'll make money. And if you don't want to do that, run 4-hour shows and watch how your crowd dies.
I think we've both definitely seen guys with 3-4 hour shows. And by the time the main event comes, not only are the guys in the main event just ready to get out there and be done with it, but over half the crowd is gone. And the crowd that's there, there's usually your diehard fans, and even they're tired after 3 or 4 hours. I think the era of the 4-hour Gabe Sapolsky, show is long gone. Nobody wants to sit around and wait for a 4-hour show, in my opinion.
No, and it's that possible to keep crowds for that long. You got to leave them wanting more, And then on top of that, wrestling's about buying weeks. You got to figure out a program, tell that story. But if it's something that's supposed to last 6-8 months, why are they doing a 45-minute match their first time meeting each other? You know what I mean? Why would you? It's just like sex. If you come in the first minute, then what are you doing after that? What else is going on? You know what I'm saying? So you gotta give it time to build up. You want that climax to be the best climax possible. So you don't want the girl, albeit for us, for married guys, then get it off as good as possible, as fast as possible. Is usually good because we're trying to watch something on TV. But in a wrestling show, you want to let it build as much as possible, and you want to be able to draw this out. So at Power Pro, when honestly, when Moses Manson and I were booking, we would work backwards. we'd be like, all right, this is the final result we want. But anyway, I mean, that's what we did, man. We had a good time, and we drank a lot of tequila and watched a lot of Japanese wrestling. They figured out ways to kill people. And it drew really well. Between ECW and a lot of like FMW and stuff like that. That's what Manson and I really used. And he was great, man. We would argue and yell and scream at each other and finally figure it out. And then we brought it to Foley or Jimbo. And he'd be like, yeah, I like it. Let's do it. Or he hated it and he'd tell us why. And then we'd argue with him for another hour. But it was a fun booking and the promotion did really well while I was there.
Oh yeah, definitely. I remember. Oh man, it was a great setup in that building too. Jesus, that was such a great setup. I wish I could so much. Yes, I wish I could have been such. I wish I would have been a lot better as a wrestler back then, instead of being such a horrible, shitty greenhorn with a really bad attitude. But I really do. All right, one more question. Then we're done. I know time is running short and stuff, man. Strong style. Actually, no. Like 2 more questions. Strong style. Bullshit or not?
Real strong style is awesome to watch. Whatever the hell these kids do nowadays that say it's strong style, but it's just really kicking the shit out of someone, is terrible. So yeah, that's bullshit.
And then favorite road trip story. Because I know I have, like, one of my favorite road trip stories is the one and only time I've ever been to a WrestleMania event was when WrestleMania was down in the Georgia Dome. Me and Bobby Savage were just walking around aimlessly through a mall in the middle of Atlanta at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and out of nowhere we looked down the corridor and there's Mark James walking through the same exact mall. And I just bought these like limited edition Converses or whatever that had like wicker or some kind of wicker design in the shoe. And I remember you crowned my shoes for like 2 hours while we walked around this mall. Which I thought those shoes were badass, but you clowned the shoes I just bought for like 2 hours, man. But what's your favorite road trip story? Just the most amazing road trip story.
Oh, I see. I figured your favorite road trip story would be the one where we were going up to West Virginia, and you and Joe were in the car together, and Jimmy and I like snuck up on you and were just riding your ass for a while.
Oh my God, that was so. Oh my God, man! Like, if I had a gun, I'd have shot you. Okay, Kev, I'm telling you right now, Kev. So me and Joe are riding to when NWA Mid-Atlantic was running out of West Virginia. Me and Joe were going to a show. And there was somebody, we're driving through the mountains of West Virginia, and there's this blue SUV in front of us, and they were just like, they were going, and then we'd like, they were like 70, 75 or whatever, and we're like round our ass, and then they would slow down. And they would slow down to like 50. And so we couldn't pass by because traffic's so packed, so we're just riding behind these assholes in the left-hand lane doing like 50, 55. And then we finally get a chance to pass them, and we pass them, and then they would tailgate us, and they'd get back beside us and get back in front of us. And that went on for like, how long did that go? How long were y'all fucking with us, man?
It was probably about 5 miles at least. 5 to 10 miles we had to be fucking.
5 to 10 miles. And like, I was driving, and for some reason, I just wasn't paying attention to who the driver was. I just saw like some big white guys. I'm like, whatever. We're around Beckley, West Virginia. Of course, there's one of these hillbillies or one of these, backwoods Bama ass fuckers just messing with us. Like, if I have a gun, I would shoot these bastards. And I never looked at the license plate. And then all of a sudden, we're riding and the windows are down, and a chicken bone comes flying through my damn car. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I look, and there's you and Jimmy dying laughing.
Oh God, that was great.
that was bro. I'm telling you, if I'd had a gun, I'd have shot you. And I think luckily you threw the chicken bone at us, because I was to the point where I was going to get in front of you and brake check you at like 75 miles an hour, because I had full coverage on my car, and at that point I did not care.
It was great too, because like you can see Joe physically, like visibly getting really, really pissed off at passengers. Oh man.
Okay. All right. So what's your favorite? Not including me or Joe. What is your favorite road trip story?
I really like the whole story. We're boring on road trips a lot of times. There was a show again in like West Virginia that Jimmy and myself and Corey Duncombe, rest his soul, and Walter Eaton all were booked on, and it was a little podunk town, and there was like maybe, I don't know, it was like 30 people there, and I don't even remember what the company was that we worked with up there. But we had such a good time going up there, and just I don't know, like a lot of our stuff is just talking trash and things like that. We don't. When I started really doing a lot of road stuff, I didn't do a lot of dumb things because I was just really serious about what I was doing at the time. But just spending time with friends and hanging out, talking about Jimmy wearing burlap and telling little gay stories and things like that were really fun.
Or Jimmy having no delts or small forearms. Yeah.
I think that's like your thing with him. Jimmy's big as shit. He's bigger than I am. And a little bit more muscular.
I was going to ask you because they said I seen on social media where Jimmy was hurt, and I was like, did somebody take his neck? Like, what happened? Like, did somebody finally take Jimmy's neck? Like, is that why he can't wrestle? He has no neck anymore.
No, unfortunately, Jimmy's had like a hernia. It's been something in his stomach for years, probably since he was in high school wrestling, and he's just never going to check out, and it's starting to like cause him a lot of pain and causing a lot of issues. So he's wanted to get that checked out, and they're still not quite sure on what's going on with it. He's supposed to have a surgery at some point, hopefully, to get rid of it. And then the other side of the thing is, like, he's been wrestling since forever, really. Like, his dad was wrestling. He was brought up in the business. He was a wrestler. That's what he did every weekend. Missing birthdays, missing holidays, and all that stuff, and he'd be on the road. So he wants to spend some time with his family. He's been doing it probably, 9 years or something like that, or 7 years straight. And then on the other side, too, when Corey passed away earlier this year, all of us took it really hard, but Jimmy and Corey were inseparable, literally brothers in every sense of the word. And he's never really taken the time to mourn it and to get over it the way he needs to. So he wants to take some time off, and it could be until the end of the year. It could be till August. I don't know. But we're telling everybody it's probably going to be at least till the end of the year. Which for me, honestly, as much as I love tagging with Jimmy, I think a singles run is going to be good. It'll give me something a little more fresh. I can sink my teeth into something different. So I'm kind of enjoying the fact that I can do a singles run and kind of get back to what I used to do back in the day before I was known as just a tag team wrestler.
Yeah, but when you was beating up rookies and stuff, let's have more of that. So I know that you, once again, Mark, I'm so thankful that you could be, a guest on the show tonight, man. I know our time is running very short with you and stuff, and there's so many other things I could talk to you about. So many different stories and things that we could talk about as far as just the dichotomy between me and you, that we might just have to save for another show. But go ahead and let all my listeners and fans know what upcoming events you have going on, where our listeners and fans can find you and where they can see, the original Brute wrestle at.
Easiest way to find me is on either Facebook or Twitter. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/Mark James Brute. Also, you can find me on Twitter at Real Mark James. I've been there for years. Those are the easiest ways to really find me. As far as matches and shows coming up, I've got some really cool stuff happening over the next few months. But most notably, what I have coming up on July 2nd, which is it's called Pride, and that's going to be for Warzone Wrestling down in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I've started doing some really good stuff with Modern Vintage Wrestling, with the RWA, and things like that. So we've got a lot of shows coming up, and just too many dates for me to remember right off the top of my head. I keep everything on my phone. But definitely tune in for Real Mark James on Twitter, or Facebook is the easiest too. And we'll be able to talk back and forth, and you can find out where I'm going to be at. Evidently, over the last couple of days, it's been the weirdest thing. So I've had a fan message me on Facebook asking me to throw someone at them at a show because they saw Jimmy and I throw a Lance Lude at a fan at a show at Warzone in Fayetteville. And he's like, man, it'd be so cool if you guys did that to me. So I've never had anyone asked me to throw someone at them before. And I don't know, it's an interesting first. And then I had I received a letter literally today that a fan of mine in Germany, I don't have any idea how they found my address, or any of that stuff, but, which to me is kind of creepy, but this guy sent me a picture of myself and asked me to sign it and send it back to him. So I'm going to do that, but, super creepy if you are that much of a fan that you're looking for my address. You might want to go talk to someone. But crazy stuff.
No, man, you can't say that's bad. I mean, they took time out. I don't know. I'm Jesus. I don't even know how you can find out somebody. They had to look you up and then pay for something. They do
they have to figure out what my actual name is. They have to, they have to figure out which one of that name is me out of the entire U.S. And then they have to figure out what address would be mine. And then they have to phrase a letter nice enough for me not to think they're a complete creeper. For me to actually find it.
I hope the picture was really good.
What's that?
I hope the picture was good.
No, it was a terrible picture. I'm debating on sending a promo shot. It was me and Smith Garrett, Smith Garrett with a spine buster, and I'm just on my knees, kind of tell, out of breath because it's me and I'm old and fat. I was like, God, it's a horrible picture of me. But if that's what he wants, how many other pictures of this guy put out of me that he has in his house? Is there a shrine for Mark James in this place? Which is super cool if that's what you're into. Thankfully, you're all the way in Germany. But if you listen to this, thanks for the picture. You should get it back soon. Also, thanks for the letter, that the envelope that you sent that said you were going to pay the postage to get it back. So that was really nice of you as well.
That's sweet. Who actually does that? That's pretty cool. They send you an envelope hey, I already paid for the postage for the return postage. Just sign it, stick it back in the envelope, and send it back. That's very thoughtful. Man.
Yeah, very, very thoughtful. Very thoughtful. You guys evidently put a lot of thought into all this.
Well, I tell you what, man. If nothing else, I'm definitely going to talk to Charlie and the powers that be down there at Modern Vintage, because I think that North Carolina, it's about time that, the Incredible Hulk and the Brute actually have, a legitimate match. We've had, tag team matches against each other, and we've had scuffles, and we had that one match for the NWA Continental Championship that, neither one of us really wanted to do anything because that ring was so stiff and so hard. And we're look, no, there's no way we're going to do anything crazy in this behemoth of a fucking ring.
Oh, yeah, man.
If anybody's wondering, the match for the NWA Continental Championship actually took place in one of the WrestleMania 2 rings. Is that right, Mark? It's one of a 22-foot long ring. It's 22 feet long.
Yeah.
And it's
it was used in... yeah, it was my old ring.
Yeah, just as stiff as a boxing ring.
Yes. It was actually an old WWE ring, or WWF ring. It was used in WrestleMania, I think it was WrestleMania 2. Killer Kowalski owned it, and then he sold it to, he didn't really sell it. Mike Phoenix and Ken Phoenix, or Kenny Dykstra, for those that know him, were helping him train at his school, and he ended up gifting them the ring instead of paying them. And I bought it off of them. Literally drove up to Massachusetts with my friend Greg and bought the ring off of them, brought it back, and then eventually sold it to Kenny Bain. And he's had it ever since. The guy's taking really good care of it. He just needs to probably get some new pads.
Yeah. It's I don't know. He needs to put a mattress on that ring. Anyway, Mark, thanks for being a guest of the show, man. I appreciate it. Like I said, so entertaining. You're a great storyteller. So educational. To all our listeners and fans, once again, follow Mark James on Facebook. Follow him on Twitter, especially during baseball season, because for some ungodly reason, this gentleman is a New York Yankees fan. So please do like myself and several others and just antagonize him about how horrible the Yankees are. And then, check him out if you see a flyer, like I say, he's all over the place, especially in North Carolina and the Mid-Atlantic area. Buy a ticket, support him. I promise you, you would not be disappointed seeing this gentleman move in the ring. Anything else you want to say before we let you go tonight, Mark?
No, I'm good. My wife is staring me down, and when she found out I was talking to you, she's like, "Tell that motherfucker you need to get on the phone."
Okay, all right. So please tell Mrs. Brute I apologize. Tell her thank you for being so patient, and I will see you in a couple of weeks, all right?
I do apologize. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, man. Yeah, I told her. No worries. Awesome. Thank you for having me, and thanks everybody for listening. And I hope you enjoyed it or learned something. And if you need anything, let me know. Cool.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, man. Have a good night. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Well, Kev, special edition of the Wrestling Nerdcast with the brute Mark James. I don't feel like you're disappointed. What do you think?
No, not disappointed at all. Great storytelling, first of all, and just so many walkaway lessons. If you are in the business of professional wrestling, I think this is a show you need to listen to.
Oh, definitely. Like the main story, about how he lost an opportunity to work for WWE. He didn't even go into detail about the fact that they were actually looking for talent, and that his name had actually popped up on their radar. About talent that they were thinking about using and stuff, maybe in enhancement matches or maybe bring it down to developmental. Like he didn't even mention that, and that was an opportunity lost because of an idiotic move made running his mouth on social media. So yeah, like you said, if any of our listeners are in the business, if they know somebody who's in the business, they definitely need to listen to this episode. Anyway, Kev, I guess that's this week's podcast. Once again, not going to be on Thursday Night AMP next week, or this coming week, but next week, our guests, I'm super excited about our guests. They are the tag team champions with two E's. Instead of an I-O-N-S, it's P-E-E-N-S. Hashtag all the grilled cheeses. Hashtag they are the centerpiece. They are the building blocks of the hashtag workhorsemen. Lance Lude, Rob Killjoy, the Ugly Ducklings will be the guests of the show next week. Former PWX Tag Team Champions, the NWA United States Tag Team Champions, Rockstar Pro Tag Team Champions, IWA Mid-South Tag Team Champions. These guys hold tag team gold all over the place, man. They're all over the country, from Florida to Iowa, Idaho, Jersey, Tennessee, Indiana, New York, Jersey, North Carolina, West Virginia. You name it, these guys are all over the place. One of the most popular tag teams in professional wrestling right now, especially on the indie circuit. They're going to be our guests next week. Can't wait for it. Anything you want to say before we go today, Kev?
Oh, I can't wait for it either. I mean, when I went with you to in West Virginia a couple weeks ago, getting to see these guys live. I've heard you talk about them and hype them for a while. Getting to see them live is just wild. I mean, they are some crazy dudes. And just the amount of attention that they can attract, just fans are just naturally drawn to them. They've got a charisma standing still that I don't think I've seen at a tag team in years. I'll be honest, I really seriously wonder how much longer it's going to be before you see these guys signed to a mainstream promotion like Ring of Honor or Impact Wrestling. Well, I hope they don't ever go to Impact Wrestling, but if they get an opportunity there, you're not going to deny it. You do what you got to do in this business, right?
Exactly.
So you do what you got to do, and if they get that opportunity, they should definitely take advantage of it, no doubt. But man, just seeing these guys, I have not seen a tag team this charismatic and just so energetic and just fans just crazy about them. I've not seen a tag team like that in years.
I'll tell you what, man, I would love to see those two guys, in New Japan Pro Wrestling for the junior heavyweight tag team titles, man. I'd love to see them mix it up with Roppongi Vice or the Young Bucks or any other tag team. I would love to see, them in the Tokyo Dome with 15,000, 20,000 people all quacking. I think that would be a sight to behold.
Put them against the Briscoes.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh,
man.
God.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what? That's kind of who they remind me of. The Briscoes.
Just a lot goofier.
Yeah.
just a lot. a lot goofier.
Yeah, definitely a lot goofier. I mean, but it's goofy, but it's goofy in a fun way.
Yes. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, they'll be our guest on next week. Sorry about the delays for this week's podcast with Christian Skyfire and Charlene. We'll get that loaded up as soon as possible along with this podcast. Please be patient, people. You know, shit happens, whatever. And like I said, I got the hardest working producer in wrestling podcast history. I don't care what anybody said. You know, Chris Jericho, Stone Cold, whoever, you know, Jim Cornette, Kenny Bolin. I don't care what they say. I have the hardest working producer in wrestling podcast history. This guy, Killer Kevin's the fucking shit. It's nice to let you know right now. Killer Kevin, shizzle. Anyway, on behalf of the hardest working producer in wrestling podcast history, Killer Kev, on behalf of the friends of the wrestling podcast, once again, the Bearded Wonder, Dave Paisley, the Prophet Rick Craig, Drew Skills, Troy Miller. Huge shout out to tonight's guest, the Brute Mark James, and a special shout out to his wife for letting him spend so much time talking to me on this podcast. I am the worldwide Grand Prix champion, the IWA North Carolina champion, the disrespectful intellectual, the Southern gentleman, the former Morning Star, and the incredible Huck, Will Huckabee, saying see you next Tuesday. But until then, support indie wrestling. Good night.
You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.